Hello everyone, welcome to the Indian Polity Answer Writing Batch number 4. Now this is day number 2 that we are looking at the test questions. We are going to understand how these questions could have been answered. The questions were very direct. There was no twisting of the questions. They were simple to the point direct questions. And that is why to understand how to answer them should be all the more easy. Why? Because right now it is day 2 and we have just started with the simple questions so that you can become comfortable in the batch. Okay. This is a 10-day batch. Saturday, Sunday are off. There are no tests or questions given on Saturday and Sunday. Saturday and Sunday is for you to understand where you did your mistakes in the answer sheets and for you to go through the solutions which we are providing right now. I could have given you model answers also, but that would have not helped you in understanding how you need to read and understand the question. That is why I am creating this video solution for all of you. Okay. Now in this video solution, I'm not going to handhold you. No, I'm not going to spoon feed you. Right? In this lecture, I am going to tell you how to read the question, how to understand what the question wants to know. Okay? Because in all of the answer sheets that I have checked and evaluated in the batch, students have not read the question properly. They have just jumped on to answer what they knew. They did not answer what the examiner wanted to know. So this is the first mistake that the students commit in their answers. They answer what they know, not what the examiner wants to know. And that is where you lose marks. You have learnt about fundamental duties, you have crammed it, you have learned it word by word, and you just vomit it on the answer sheets. That is not the right approach. You read the question, only write what is being asked. And in many of the answer sheets that I have evaluated in this batch, 99% of the students wrote what they had crammed. They did not understand what the examiner was asking. Why they did not understand it? Because they did not read the question properly. पढ़ा ही नहीं question को ढंग से, तो फिर लिखेंगे कैसे? So the first mistake that you have done is you did not read the question properly. When you don't read the question properly, you don't understand what the question wants you to answer. When you don't understand, then you write what you know, not what the examiner is demanding, and then you end up losing marks. Okay? So first thing that you need to do is read the question. For example, starting with question number 1. Explain fundamental duties, establishing their relationship between fundamental rights. Now students, 10 mark ka this question was of 10 marks. And all the students committed grave mistakes in answering this most easy question. Why? Because they did not read the question. They just read explain fundamental duties and they wrote everything about fundamental duties. They wrote all the fundamental duties which are mentioned. Where in the question the examiner asked write all the fundamental duties? Let me know. The question was saying explain fundamental duties. That means what is fundamental duty? Right? Nowhere in the question it is being asked write down all the fundamental duties or list down all the fundamental duties. You just had to explain what you understand by the term fundamental duties. Establishing their relationship between fundamental rights. Students, they differentiated between fundamental rights and fundamental duties in the answer sheet. That was second mistake. Again, you did not understand. Establish relationship between fundamental duties and fundamental rights. That means what is that one thing that relates both of them? What is the one common thing or link between fundamental duty and fundamental rights? That you had to explain. Very simple. कहाँ पर एग्जामिनर ने पूछा है कि डिफरेंशिएट करो दोनों के बीच में? 99% of the students in their answer sheet differentiated between fundamental duties and fundamental rights. But the question was very simple. It was saying establish their relationship. दोनों के बीच का रिश्ता क्या है? What is the relationship? For example, you and me. I am your educator. You are my student. That is the relationship. Teacher-student relationship. So what is the relationship between fundamental duty and fundamental right? That you had to explain. So when you are asked to explain the fundamental duties, first you have to explain what you understand by fundamental duties. Fundamental duties are what? They are moral obligations, right? हर citizen का एक moral duty होती है. What moral duty? To protect the unity of his or her mother nation, right? So fundamental duties, basic explanation is that they are moral obligations of all citizens. Now understand what you have to underline. There are students who unnecessarily underline everything. There was a student, I would not name the student, but the student had unnecessarily underlined every word in the answer. That is wrong. Okay. Always remember, you have to make sure that the attention of the examiner has to be pulled towards only most important words, not all the words. So fundamental duties are moral obligations of who? Of all citizens. For what? To uphold the unity of India, to promote spirit of patriotism. So spirit of patriotism and uphold the unity of India. And in which part of the constitution fundamental duties are mentioned? This is the basic explanation of fundamental duties based on your understanding. ये आपके अंडरस्टैंडिंग के बेस पे आपने you have given the introductory line on fundamental duties. Now the examiner has the idea what fundamental duties are. Now you will explain the factual information. So they are set out in which part? Part 4A of the constitution. These fundamental duties, they remind Indian citizens of their duty towards society. Fundamental duty. Duty of what? Duty of citizens towards what? Towards society. And these duties are divided into two parts, moral duty and civic duty. Now, there were 10 fundamental duties which were added by 42nd Amendment Act of 1976. Then one more was added by the 86th Amendment Act 2002. So total there are 11 fundamental duties. And which committee recommended fundamental duties? It was the Swaran Singh committee which recommended fundamental duties. When it was recommended? During the emergency 1975 से 77 की जो emergency लगी थी उस दौरान ये fundamental duties स्वरण सिंह committee ने recommend की थी. So now in the introduction and the first part of the body of the answer, you have explained the correct meaning, the basic meaning of fundamental duty along with the factual information. This is how you had to explain what fundamental duties are. Students, what they did? They just wrote that yes, 42nd Amendment Act introduced fundamental duties, Swaran Singh committee, 2 lines on it, and then they listed down all the 10, 11 fundamental duties. That was wrong. Those are the fundamental duties. The question is asking, explain what are fundamental duties, not list down the fundamental duties. The question did not say list down. List down अगर बोला होता तो सारे fundamental duties लिखते आप. Question ने तो बोला explain करो. If somebody asks you to explain something, you do not list down things. You explain the real meaning behind thing or behind the topic. If somebody asks you, if your mother asks you, explain what is Indian polity. You will not write down the chapters of Indian polity. You will explain कि mummy, Indian polity is study of the constitution, understanding our constitution, that is Indian polity, understanding the politics, understanding administration. You will not list down the chapters of M. Lakshmikant book to your mother, right? Same way, if they are asking explain fundamental duties, then don't end up writing all the fundamental duties. They did not ask that. That is why I say read the question carefully. When you don't read the question, then you write what you know, but you do not write what the examiner wants to know. Okay? So, first tip for today is don't write what you know. Write what the examiner wants to know. वो मत लिखो जो तुमको पता है. वो लिखो जो examiner जानना चाहता है. Because then only the examiner will be satisfied with your answer and he will give you marks accordingly. For that, you need to read and understand the question carefully first. From the perspective of examiner, not from your own perspective. Ki yes, fundamental right duties are written over here, so we'll write everything that we know about fundamental duty. No. Just write what the examiner wants you to write. Okay? Now to answer the next part of the question which says establishing the relationship between fundamental rights. Means you have to explain fundamental duties. Simultaneously, you have to explain what is the relationship between fundamental rights and fundamental duties. Okay? You do not have to pinpoint the difference, the relationship, what is the common ground that links both of them together. So here you will answer that the fundamental rights and fundamental duties, they basically, they can be said to be the basic and indisputable rights that belong to every Indian with no discrimination. Fundamental rights and fundamental duties, you know that everybody has it, everybody in India has it. You have your fundamental duties towards the society. You also have been granted fundamental rights. And it is without any discrimination of gender, race, caste, class, creed, etc. Right? but the relationship is not mutually exclusive. You cannot say fundamental rights are different and fundamental duties are different. Now here, when you want to establish relationship between both, you have to prove it by giving examples also. जब आपको दोनों के बीच में रिश्ता establish करना है, example देना पड़ेगा आपको. Only then you can prove ना that both are complementary to each other. So we can give the example of Article 26 of Indian Constitution in the fundamental rights and Article 51A in the fundamental duties. Both of them talk about education. That is how both of them are complementary. They are not exclusive. They are compatible. दोनों ही education की बात कर रहे हैं. Article 26 says that it is about right to education. Article 51A says that every parent has the duty, every guardian has the duty to get his or her child educated. So we can say that both the rights and duties, they have worked together towards securing the education of a child between the age group of 6 and 14. दोनों ही फंडामेंटल राइट और ड्यूटी एक साथ काम कर रहे हैं टू प्रोवाइड एजुकेशन टू द चाइल्ड. दैट इज द रिलेशनशिप बिटवीन बोथ. दे आर नॉट म्यूचुअली एक्सक्लूसिव. This is the highlight of the answer. They are not mutually exclusive. They are compatible. They are complementary to each other. They support each other. Another example you can give. मैं आपको बता देती हूँ. This is Article 26 and Article 51A. Another example in fundamental right. How they are linked together. You can create this flowchart also. Article 21. Fundamental right to, write it down, right to life and dignity, right, of an Indian citizen. Similarly, here we have Article 51A, Clause C and Clause E. They are the fundamental duties to ensure that dignity, of nation and individual, they are upheld. The dignity of nation and individual are upheld by ensuring harmony between the two. Freedom between the two. Okay, so both of them talks about dignity and freedom. So ये दोनों are interconnected. This is another example that you can give. Two examples to establish the relationship between fundamental duties and fundamental rights. And 99% of the students, they answered this easy question very incorrectly because they did not read the question. And that is why they lost these 10 marks. ठीक है, तो इसीलिए that is the reason why you have to understand the question, read the question first before jumping on to answer it. There was no need to differentiate between the two. They were not asking you to highlight the differences. They were asking you to establish their relationship. Now coming on to question number 2. What are fundamental duties? This part I have already explained here. Fundamental duties क्या है? Here also na students committed this mistake of writing all the fundamental duties. It was not even asked. They were just asking what is fundamental duty. You just had to explain it in 4 to 5 lines. Second part of the question is, should they made enforceable? Give your opinion with valid rationale behind them. Again, 100% of the students answered this question incorrectly. The question said, should they be made enforceable? Fundamental duties are not enforceable. They are not legally enforceable, right? आप उसको कोर्ट में जाके लीगली इन्फोर्स नहीं करा सकते. यू कैन नॉट अप्रोच द कोर्ट्स एंड इन्फोर्स देम लीगली. फंडामेंटल राइट्स आर लीगली इन्फोर्सेबल. यू कैन अप्रोच द कोर्ट इफ दे आर वायोलेटेड, but not fundamental duties. The question, the examiner is asking you as a civil servant, you are preparing for civil services. So as a civil servant, do you think that fundamental duties should be made enforceable? You had to give your opinion. They were asking your opinion and support your opinion with logic. आपका जो भी opinion है इस regard में, उसको support करना है example या logic के through. That was the question. So this was purely analytical question based on your understanding of fundamental duties. So first let us answer the introductory part. तो यहाँ पर I have just created this small flowchart. You can create it, but please answer in paragraph format in your question. ठीक है, अपने answer sheet में introduction should not be in a flowchart manner. It should be in the manner of paragraph. So to make it easier for you, idea of fundamental duties was inspired by Constitution of Russia. It was incorporated in Part 4A by 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act 1976 on the recommendation of Swaran Singh Committee. Originally, there were 10 fundamental duties. Later, 11th one was added by 86th Constitutional Amendment Act 2002. And like DPSP, that is Directive Principle of State Policy, fundamental duties are also non-justiciable in nature. This is the introductory part. Okay. Now the second part of the question says, should they be made enforceable? Now here to explain ki if fundamental duties should be enforced in the court of law, you can quote the example of Gita and Ramayana. Now we know that in Indian society, duty का मतलब क्या होता है? What is the meaning of duty in the Indian society? It means your kartavya, your responsibility. Okay, and even in the ancient scriptures, they say that Indian society should run according to the kartavya or the duty performed by the citizens. Performance of one's duty towards society, the country, and towards their own parents, that should be given priority. And the Gita and Ramayana, they enjoined people to perform their duties without caring for their rights. Shri Ram also focused on performing his duties. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna also tells Arjuna to perform his duty without caring about anything else, any other problem in the society. Just focus on his duty. So yes, even in, you can give the example of Soviet Union Constitution. In Russian Constitution also, they used to say that rights and duties are on the same footing. They are not different from each other. They should be placed on the same pillar, on the same ground. And even there was a Verma Committee on Fundamental Duties in India in 1999, which identified existence of legal provisions for implementation of fundamental duties. If the government is giving you rights, so that is that also means that you have the duty towards the government and towards the nation. अगर आपको nation rights दे रहा है, अधिकार दे रहा है, तो आपकी भी तो कुछ duties, कुछ फर्ज बनते हैं nation के प्रति, right? It should always be two side, give and take होता है ना. You cannot expect you will take everything and you will not give anything in return. You have your kartavya, your duty, right? So Verma Committee said that some of the fundamental duties, yes, they should become enforceable. For example, protection of civil rights. 1955, it provided for punishment in case of any offence related to caste and religion. No person can disrespect national flag, constitution or national anthem under the Prevention of Insults to National Honor Act 1971. Some of the fundamental duties should become legally enforceable. That was the recommendation of Burma Committee also. So giving all these examples, I gave you 3-4 examples. Giving all these 3-4 examples, you can prove yes, fundamental duties should be placed on the same footing as that of fundamental rights, to make sure that there is continuous two-way unity and harmony in the nation, among the society, among the people. That is how you had to answer this question. Very simple question. Again, ये काफी simple question था. ठीक है? So again, the students, what they committed, what mistake they committed, they did not read the question. Question पढ़ा ही नहीं, पता नहीं, सिर्फ fundamental duties word पढ़ते ही आंसर करना शुरू कर देते हैं. वो नहीं करना. This happens, right? And it is not your mistake, because you are writing the question for the first time. It happens. But now through this mistake, you will understand not to directly jump on to answer the question, to read, assimilate, understand the meaning of the question, and then write what the examiner wants to know. Okay? Coming on to the next important question. Harmony between fundamental rights and DPSPs constitutes basic feature of Indian Constitution. Question mark. You had to explain this statement कि fundamental rights और DPSP के बीच में अगर harmony रहेगी तो वही basic feature होता है, essence है हमारे Indian Constitution का. You had to explain this statement. In this question, the question is highlighting towards the Supreme Court's verdict in the Minerva Mills case. जो Minerva Mills case हुआ था, Supreme Court in that case gave the verdict that Indian Constitution is founded on the bedrock of balance between fundamental right and DPSP. So fundamental right and DPSP basically they form the core of the commitment to social revolution. This was the judgment. ये judgment आया था Minerva Mill case में, जिसमें कहा गया था कि हमारे Constitution का जो basic foundation है वो fundamental right और DPSP के bedrock पे बना हुआ है. Okay. So here the Supreme Court said that the goals which are set out by DPSP, जो DPSP के goals हैं, they have to be achieved, but you cannot achieve them by abrogating fundamental rights, right? So Supreme Court said fundamental rights basically currently they enjoy supremacy over directive principles. But it does not mean that directive principles cannot be implemented. Parliament has the power to amend fundamental rights for implementing directive principles of state policies. But keeping in mind that this amendment does not destroy the basic structure of the constitution. So, if you want to make sure that the constitution is in harmony, you have to make a balance between fundamental right and DPSP. So, this is the diagram that you can make in your answer also. This is a triangle. This is the harmony in the constitution, harmony in constitution, and this is fundamental right on one end and DPSP on the other. You have to maintain a balance between both of them. Only then harmony can be enjoyed in the constitution. This diagram also please draw it down. इसको जल्दी से draw कर लो. You can draw this diagram in the side box in your answer also. So this is how you have to answer the questions. इस तरीके से आपको question को answer करना है. You have to hint towards the demand of the examiner. You have to hit towards the demand. Okay? यहाँ पर पूछा गया है. They are directly hinting towards the Minerva Mills case. Question number 2. Suggest a way to enhance efficacy and credibility of anti-defection law. It has been in news so many times. First, we can explain what defection is. We know that defection in politics, this has been taken from NCERT. ये हमने पूरा NCERT से लिया है, NCERT class 11. Defection in politics comes from Gayalal. Gayalal was the Haryana MLA who switched party thrice in one single day. 1967 में इस इंसान ने 3 बार पार्टी चेंज की थी. So after which there was a phase which became very famous. Aya Ram, Gaya Ram. Ram came and Gaya Ram, Gaya Ram came and Gaya Ram went. It became very popular in Indian politics. And so to maintain good governance, the 52nd Amendment of Indian Constitution was done in 1985, in which the 10th schedule was added, which was known as the anti-defection law. But even then, after anti-defection law was introduced, there were issues with the anti-defection law. What were the issues? So there are various issues which are involved in this particular law. For example, there is no recognition of split in the anti-defection law. We know that there was this 91st Constitutional Amendment Act in 2004 that came, and this particular amendment, it said because of this amendment, the anti-defection law, it created an exception. This law created an exception for anti-defection ruling. What was the exception that was created in the ruling? According to this, 2/3 of the strength of party, according to this, the 2/3 strength of party should agree for a merger, then it will not be counted as defection. अगर एक पार्टी की 2/3 population agree करती है, yes, we agree for a merger with another party, then that would not be counted as defection. And that was the exception. The amendment does not recognize a split in the party. It recognizes a merger. Ki yes, these much people of the party, they have merged with another party. But it does not say that these people have split the party. 2/3 population party की दूसरी पार्टी में चली जाती है तो उसको मर्जर का नाम दे देते हैं. पर इस लॉ में कहीं ये नहीं लिखा कि इससे स्प्लिट क्रिएट हो जाता है प्रीवियस पार्टी में. ठीक है? So that was the loophole. And people are using this loophole. Then it undermines the parliamentary democracy. In the parliamentary form of government, we know that government is accountable through what? Through questions and answers in the parliament. Question and answer session होता है ना parliament में. So through motions, through questions, they are answerable. The government is accountable and they can be removed at any time when it loses the support of the majority members of Lok Sabha. But due to the anti-defection law, this chain of accountability has been broken by many legislators who changed their parties using this loophole. Undermines legislatures. The core role of elected MLA or MP is what? To decide on policies and bills and budgets. Instead, the MP becomes just another number to be tallied by the party or any vote that it supports or opposes. For example, if a MP or MLA using this loophole shifts to another party, that MP or MLA is not respecting the legislature. The role of MP and MLA is very important. He decides on the bills, the schemes, the acts, the budgets of the party. the manifesto of the party, and if he is switching the party using this loophole, that brings down the reputation of the party also and the respect of legislature also. So it is against the representative democracy, democratic nature of the country. Okay. तो यहाँ पर ये issues हैं in the present anti-defection law. How can we strengthen the anti-defection law? How can we make sure that anti-defection law or these issues is made stronger or these issues are removed? So there are three ways through which you can enhance the strength of the anti-defection law. How can you do that? First, by strengthening intra-party democracy. If government stability is an issue because of which the people are defecting from the party, then the answer lies in strengthening the internal politics of the party. अगर पार्टी को अंदर से स्ट्रॉन्ग कर दिया जाए तो लोग छोड़ेंगे ही क्यों उस पार्टी को? If party is united and strong from within, then why will the MPs and MLAs leave or defect the party? So you have to strengthen the internal part of the party, the internal democracy of the political party. Second, restrict the scope of anti-defection law. How can you do that? See, if you want to shield or protect the negative effect of anti-defection law on the representative democracy, then you have to expand and restrict the scope of the law. जैसे कि 2/3 वाला loophole, 2/3 population of the party वाला loophole that I discussed in the earlier part, if this loophole is corrected, then the you can say anti-defection law scope will be restricted. अगर ये जो लूप होल है इसको पकड़ के करेक्ट कर दिया जाए, इफ इंस्टेड ऑफ जस्ट रिकॉग्नाइजिंग द मर्जर यू आल्सो रिकॉग्नाइज द स्प्लिट इन द पार्टी, if this loophole is corrected, the anti-defection law scope can be restricted. And you have to regulate the political parties. Such a law should bring political parties, such a law should be passed which brings the political parties under the coverage of RTI, right to information. Okay. राइट टू इन्फॉर्मेशन के कवरेज में अगर पॉलिटिकल पार्टीज आ गई, देन दे हैव टू बी अकाउंटेबल फॉर ईच एंड एवरी स्टेप दैट दे टेक, एंड इफ दे बिकम अकाउंटेबल टू द पब्लिक, टू द जनता, देन दे विल टेक स्टेप्स, whatever steps they will take in their life, they will take it very very mindfully, very carefully. So these are the steps through which you can enhance the strength of anti-defection law. इसको आप थोड़ा सा elaborate करेंगे. This is how these 4 questions had to be tackled with. इस तरीके से इन questions को tackle करना था. I hope आपको एक understanding हो गई होगी, journal understanding how to deal with the question. You just have to read them carefully, understand the point that examiner wants you to highlight, and then you have to act accordingly. Okay?